Good evening, and thank you all for coming tonight, and welcome to the Coliseum at Caesar's Palace. This will be an emotional evening, and one that we will remember forever. As you can see under the spotlight, there's a golden casting of a hand, a very special hand that was a key part of the most loving and romantic story that I've heard in my 52 years of living in America. Last August, after Celine's year away from this stage to take care of Rene and be with him in his battle against throat cancer, the show was about to reopen. But Rene would not be here to perform his ritual handshake in the wings before the show. So this sculpture from a cast of Rene's hand was set on a wood pedestal in the wings, so Celine, the other artists and crew, could touch his hand or knock on the wood for a good show. When this celebration of life was put into perspective, the gold hand seemed to be the right symbol to perpetuate Rene's memory. Tonight, at the conclusion of this ceremony, you are invited and encouraged to come on stage following our speakers to touch the golden hand as a link to the past and a good omen for the future. Now, please welcome the family. Andre, Rene's brother. Patrick, Rene's son. Jean-Pierre, Rene's son. Anne-Marie, Rene's daughter. Rene Charles, Rene's son. And Celine Dion. And now our guide for this evening, Patrick Angelil.
Good evening. Bonsoir. Thank you for being here to pay tribute to my father. Merci d'être venu rendre hommage à mon père. I'm sure you will be very happy knowing that you are all here tonight, all his friends, all his business partners, all his fans, together in this celebration of his life. Throughout the evening, we will hear some musical interludes, and I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Scott Price, musical director for Celine's show. His musicians, Philip Donegan, Jennifer Erickson, Dimitri Kurka, and Lindsay Springer. So now, let me introduce you to the first speaker of the night, Mr. Gary Selesner. Gary Selesner is the president of Caesar's Palace. Gary has always treated Celine and Rene as family and has been extremely supportive in the best of times and in the hardest of times. So please, join me to welcome Mr. Gary Selesner.
Ladies and gentlemen, first, I'd like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to Celine and her family to allow us to have this time together to remember and honor Rene. And my thanks to all of you for joining us today at the Coliseum. As you may know, Rene inspired, nourished, and gave so much love to this very special corner of Caesar's Palace. And it's an honor to be asked to say a few words about Rene, who over the past 11 years I have had the pleasure of getting to know. We already know about Rene's extraordinary qualities, and without question, he was bigger than life and astoundingly successful. But what I'd like to tell you about is a very brief story which shares a side or two of Rene that I suspect many of you don't know. From time to time, Rene would stop by my office, ostensibly to bounce new ideas off me. The purpose of these visits ranged from presenting ideas for whole new shows. For example, Rene once asked if I thought it was a good idea to include the 40-piece orchestra in the second show, and to presenting new numbers he and Celine had decided to drop in to freshen up a new day. Now, Rene, being one of the world's greatest showmen, hardly needed my or anyone else's opinion, and I'm sure he and Celine had long since made up their mind about these new elements. But being an incredibly gracious and polite man, he wanted me to feel part of the process and would seek my input anyway. And it did feel good, I have to tell you. So that's the first thing I want you to know about Rene. What a warm, gracious, and considerate man he was. But Rene was also a little superstitious. And I guess that shouldn't be a surprise to us, as we all know he loved to play. But he was even superstitious about Celine's shows, despite how incredibly successful they were. In the beginning, when we were still getting to know each other, Rene came to visit me to share a new idea for a new day. And when I reacted favorably to the idea, I went on to thank him for how successful the show was and how much it meant to Caesar's Palace. As soon as I said the word successful, he reached out to tap on wood. The only problem was there was no wood to tap on. Rene searched with his knuckles and his eyes and then resigned himself to rapping on my stone and glass coffee table and pronounced in his whispery voice, "Tabernacle." I was so embarrassed. Rene Angelil comes to my office and wants to tap wood for good luck, and I didn't have any for him to tap on. Fortunately, several days later, or maybe it was a few weeks, a gift arrived at my office. It's a beautiful solid wood box. It plays music when you open the lid. I can't remember who sent it to me, maybe Rene. In any event, I placed it on the coffee table in front of the spot where Rene always sat. And when the next time he came to visit me, before he left, he tapped on that wooden box. And he did it every time thereafter he came to see me. Now, there's a picture of Rene in that wooden box. And while I don't consider myself a superstitious man, I tap on it frequently for good luck. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Celine. You and your family are our family and will always be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selesner. John Meglin is the president and co-CEO of Concerts West AEG Live. 15 years ago, when Rene's dream was to come to Las Vegas, John was the very first to believe in this crazy venture. So, please let me introduce you to Mr. John Meglin.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. Celine, thank you so much for sharing your husband with us for these last 15 years, and to all the children for sharing your father with us. You had an absolutely amazing father. Andre and the rest of the Angelil and the Dion family, it's the same to you. You shared an amazing person from your family with us, and it meant so much. You know, 15 years ago now seems like a blink of the eye. It began as a business deal, but it became so much more. Yes, he was building his dream. He was building this beautiful venue for his wife to sing in, but you know, nobody had ever done this before. It had never been done. The non-believers were 101 to the believers. They really were. And he liked those odds. He really did. He knew what he had. He knew his hand. It was great. You know, he felt it in every ounce of his body. He really did. And his passion was it was infectious to all of us. It really was. And he was right. He was absolutely right. Not only was he right, he had a royal flush. It was all hearts. It was a royal flush. He nailed it like you've never seen anyone nail it before. You know, none of us really knew what we were doing back there at the beginning. You know, we followed him. You know, we were a small group back then, and it's grown into this family, this family of people, many who are here today and many who work here today in this building, and they've spent 15 years of their lives, many of them, and this is their life. This place has become their life. I've walked through here for the last couple of days, and I've spoken to so many people, you know, and they all have their own personal Rene story. It's fabulous. You know, they all talk about his generosity, his kindness, his loyalty, his values. So I just want to say on behalf of all of us here from AG and everybody that works here in this building and that, you know, we want to thank Rene for that. We really do. You'll hear so much tonight about Rene's values and how he treated people and that, but I want to talk a little bit about his business sense, because he was like, numbers to Rene were like breathing, okay? They really were. He got them so quickly. His passion for launching, for marketing, for all of that, I mean, he was a genius at those things. But where he was really a master was in the presentation. He was a master at the presentation, and we all know it. We all know how much Rene loved food, and I mean, food was glorious, was the only word you could use for food with Rene. And when you had dinner, it was a glorious, there was 12, 14 people around the table. And when you would go to his suite to have breakfast for meetings and that, if you walked in the morning and there was just, you know, some biscuits and some donuts and some coffee, you knew it was going to be a regular businessman meeting. But if you got there and there was, you know, somebody serving you and then making omelets in the corner, it was starting to get, you know, okay, this is going to get a little expensive here. I wasn't sure what's going on. So, I mean, but that was kind of normal in that. But what happened, a lot of people don't know, but there's this big screen behind here. It's 110 feet wide, okay? And it's the biggest indoor screen in the world, okay? And it wasn't part of the original plan, okay? I think Loveman or somebody came up with it. But one day Rene called and said, John, I'd like to meet you and my boss at the time, Tim Lywicki, for a meeting in L.A. And I went, oh, meeting in L.A.? Why is he coming to L.A.? Normally we go see him. And he said, oh, no, we're going to meet at the Ritz-Carlton down at the marina for breakfast. And I went, uh-oh. So I called Tim and said, we're going to meet Rene for breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton. He said, what's going on? And I tried to explain to Tim the different breakfast setups. He didn't quite get it. But we got there, and we were escorted into a private room. And there was the bakeries, and there was fruit. There was even a guy serving bakeries. There was a guy making omelets over in that corner, and there was another guy making crepes and pancakes over here. And I turned to Tim and said, I think this is going to be the most expensive breakfast you've ever had. So, you know, Rene, he nailed it. I mean, it was like we needed this screen. We had to have this screen. It became so integral. And when we walked out after that breakfast, Tim looked at me and he said, what happened? And I said, well, we just bought a video screen. me. He said, how much did it cost? And I said, it was $8 million. He said, wow. He goes, what did we get? And I said, well, we got another year of the show. He said, but we haven't opened yet. And right then I felt like I was Rene. I said, oh, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great. You don't have to worry about it. And it was, I mean, but he knew, you know, he was the absolute master at that. And we sat through, we watched so many of Rene's presentations, how he would just set it up, and it was flawless. I mean, we all love Rene's stories. We love hearing Rene's stories. We love telling stories about Rene. We've been in the Rene Wander for the last couple of weeks, where you go 2 exits past your house and go, how'd I get here? I was thinking about Rene. But, you know, we all have our Rene voices. You know, everybody imitates Rene's voice. It's really good. Mine was always, remember, John, happy wife, happy life. Right? It was the most important thing he ever taught me, you know. But when I think of him, he makes me smile. And I think that's what he wanted. I think he wanted us all to smile. I mean, he became a mentor of mine, and I will miss him so much. But he's in my soul. And there's my soul, whenever I do something, is always going to say, what would Rene do? So thank you very much.
Please, Scott Price and his string quartet. As Rene began to plan for Celine's return for her the second show here at the Coliseum, that was in 2011, and he sought out the legendary producer of the Grammys, a man who had produced many of Celine's television appearances. Ken Ehrlich immediately took the challenge to direct the show. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Ken Ehrlich.
Thank you. That's good. First of all, I want to echo what John said about how important it's been to all of us that your brother, your father, your husband was shared with us by you. He certainly changed my life, and I think he changed the lives of pretty much everyone here. Like many of you, I had a long time to prepare these words, but like most of you, I dreaded the prospect of actually writing them down. I'll be surprised if others of you out there don't have better stories than I have, because we all have Rene stories. But he was great material, and nobody laughed at Rene's stories, at Rene more than Rene did. And I'm reminded of the few anecdotes that I want to tell of the times that I think a number of us in this room would sit and watch the video of the Baronets doing the Freddie. It was one of the joys of our life, and we laughed like crazy, but nobody laughed more than Rene. If you haven't seen it, you can YouTube it, and you should. He had this rare quality of being able to be the target, but at the end of the day, when you thought about it, in fact, you were the target, and Rene was the one that was laughing hardest of all. Of the many stories that I will always carry with me, there are a couple that really help define Rene for me. Jack Sussman and I used to come to Las Vegas often to meet with Rene about Celine's television work, and there would be the inevitable dinner that would be no shortage of dishes on the table, and normally they'd be followed by the invitation, boys, let's play some blackjack. I can't do Rene, but, you know, nobody could. He did it better than anyone else. And we'd go to a table. This particular time we went to a salon, and after wandering around from table to table until Rene found the one, he invited us to sit down, but he had a very specific instruction. He was going to sit in the middle, and Jack and I were going to flank him on either side. It didn't take too long to figure out that we basically were furniture, and what Rene was doing was not only playing his hand, but playing our hands too. So he would give us a little bit of money and stake us to an evening, and hopefully at the end of the evening we won and we returned the money from him. And that particular night we actually did pretty well. But just sitting there and watching him and we were the shills there that night, and it was a wonderful night, and we just had so much fun with him. The second story speaks to a second passion, and it might wind up being a theme here tonight. And that's maybe what the irony of knowing and not experiencing, but knowing those last few years with Rene in the feeding tube must have been like. Because Rene loved food. He loved to eat. He loved to watch other people eat. He loved to see tables set. He loved to see dishes brought. And there was never a meal that was less than a Rabelais and feast with Rene. I had to look that up too, so don't worry about it. And what really struck me was that except for one or two things, Rene kind of, I became very proud because I take credit for whether it's true or not. I was the person that introduced Rene to deep dish Chicago pizza by having 9 pizzas from Gino's East delivered to the Ambassador East one year in Chicago. And the other thing that a lot of us, we fight over this, is who was the first person to take Rene to the In-N-Out drive-thru. And I'm telling you, it was me, okay? I was there. It was long before selfies, but I did it. And I had a big fight with Rob Prinz, who's going to tell you that he did it. He didn't do it, I did it. But maybe that's the point of this. Rene loved his bolognese and fancy foods from the greatest restaurants in the world. But just like his taste in food, his taste in people allowed him to appreciate Celine's fans and non-show business people at least as much and maybe even more than the celebrity crowd that he often traveled with. When the show was over and the fans mobbed him for pictures and autographs, it wasn't his ego that almost always responded in a positive way to what the photographs that they wanted to take with Rene. It was his genuine love and appreciation of who they were and what they did, the fans, the people. We often misuse the term man of the people. In Rene's case, that was an understatement. He understood the people's taste, and he understood their humanity. Because till the very end, he never forgot where he came from. That was one of the most important lessons that I ever learned from Rene, because I would watch him with people and see that humanity and see what he did. Rene always dressed like $1 million. I tried, and I think it's kind of ironic that tonight when I got dressed and I put this tie on, for the first time almost ever, it actually formed a knot the way Rene tied his tie, or maybe you did. I'd like to end my few minutes the way that Rene ended nearly every conversation that I ever had with him over the 20-plus years that we knew each other. There was never a conversation that didn't end with the words, "Thank you." So at this point, I would just like to take a moment and say thank you, Rene. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks to our next speaker, we can always know the gossip about who came to the show last night. Now, for the famous man about town, the entertainment journalist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the man who always had plenty of questions for Rene, and in return, always got great scoops. Please welcome Mr. Norm Clark.
Honored to be here tonight. Thank you very much. In this highly competitive world of entertainment, Rene stood out for many reasons. One big reason was because he was such a soft-spoken, sweet gentleman. I'm used to people calling me professionally. When Rene called, he shared the personal. Since Rene knew I'd been a sports writer in my previous years, our conversations always turned to his and Rene Charles' latest adventure. One day, Rene called me from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. RC had just met one of his big heroes, NASCAR driver Tony Stewart. All of 5 years old, RC had clearly inherited his parents' love of sports. During another conversation, Rene and Celine raved about RC's budding golf talents. They had just played the legendary Augusta National Course, home of the Masters. It would have been enough just to play on that course, but RC went out and had one of his best days ever and shot a score in the 70s at age 13. His mom, an avid golfer herself, was proudly singing his praises, and still is. But my favorite story about Rene and RC was when they went to Fenway Park to see RC's favorite team, the Boston Red Sox. Rene was thrilled that he got to take his 10-year-old son out on that field and watch batting practice from a couple feet away. But he was even more thrilled when RC tracked down a ball, a souvenir of a lifetime. Then RC heard some kids hollering, begging him for the ball. And I'll be damned if he didn't walk over and give them the ball. Rene was so incredibly proud of you. He loved, loved, loved you. After the game, R.C. told his dad, "This has been the greatest day of my life." It was obvious from the emotion in Rene's voice that it was also one of the greatest days in his life. To commemorate that special day, Rene later surprised R.C. on his 11th birthday by having a commemorative brick installed at Fenway. Rene had a way of making you feel like you were part of the family. I'll never forget the time he called me on a Saturday and said that the twins had just been baptized in Las Vegas. I swear I felt like a proud uncle. As much as Rene loved sports, it was no match for the love he had for his family, and that came through loud and clear every time. Over my career, I've been blessed to meet many famous athletes and celebrities, but every once in a while, someone comes along who's so special, it changes me. Rene was one of those people. He was professional. He was kind. He was honorable. I'm so grateful I got to know him, and I miss him. Thank you.
John Doelp is the Senior Vice President of A&R at Columbia Records Sony Music. All of Celine's English language albums have been produced under his trusted guidance and with his great advice. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. John Doelp.
Thank you, Patrick. Please bear with me because I'm a behind-the-scenes guy, so this is not where I usually find myself. But first of all, I'd like to thank Celine and the family for including me as part of this wonderful celebration of Rene's life. And oh, what a wonderful life he had. I've known Rene for over 26 years, and outside of my marriage and the birth of my two sons, I have enjoyed the greatest moments of my life, thanks to Rene. He let me be part of his family, and he is part of my family. And thanks to Rene, this is truly what we are, one big family. I'd like to read a few words and phrases that describe this wonderful man. Generous, kind, true gentleman in every sense of the word. One of his goals in life was to make everyone happy. Stylish, thanks to Celine. Dreamer, risk taker, pioneer, visionary, leader, partner, loving father, amazing husband, inspiring, lover of good food, the best orderer at a restaurant. When Rene ordered food, he would open the menu and he'd say, I'll take this and I'll take this. Everything on the menu. And if you loved it, he'd order 2 more servings. Mr. Sarah. Whenever I needed to find Rene, he would always tell me he's at home. And whenever he says he was at home, I knew he was at Caesar's. Idea man, music man, passionate, compassionate, team builder, organizer, great golfer, great joke teller. When he would ever tell a joke, he would always start laughing before he would say the punchline. I could hear his laughter. Deal maker, indoor golf champion. When we were making the Let's Talk About Love album, we were in London, and Celine had just taken up golf. So we took the mattress off the bed in their room, and we put it up against the window, and we started driving golf balls into this mattress. It sounded like a gunshot. So Rene gets me to get up there and hit the ball. I'm not what people call a golfer. So I hooked it, and the ball's bouncing around the room. We're jumping out of the way. You remember. Strategist, our godfather, and our secret weapon. Rene was the guy that always got it done. So in closing, I was raised in a Quaker tradition, and I'd just like to ask everybody to bow their heads and think of a great Rene story that warms your soul and sends him a message of our collective love. I love you, Rene. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Mark Juliano is currently the president of Sands Bethlehem Casino in Pennsylvania. When a new day opened in 2003, Mark was the president here at Caesar's Palace, famously supporting the passion and the dream. Please welcome Mr. Mark Juliano.
Well, good evening, everyone. And I'd like to begin by telling you I can't tell you how honored I am to be given the privilege to share a few words about my friend Rene, my dear friend Rene. And I knew that throughout the night and from the speakers who had spoken before me that everyone would be telling the wonderful attributes that we all know to be so true about Rene. So I wanted to come up with 2 stories that I think maybe have never been heard before about Rene. One, I'm almost sure has never been heard. One, maybe. He came up to my office one afternoon and he said, "Mark, something very funny happened today." He said, "You know, in the morning while Celine is still asleep, Rene Charles and I go out and we do our daily errands." He said, "We usually stop and get a Krispy Kreme because Celine's not too fond when we do that." He said, "And of course, we get whatever else we need, and I get my lottery tickets." And so we come home that day, and I explained to Rene why I choose the numbers I choose and why this place where we buy them is the luckiest place, and that today is going to be our lucky day, and we're going to win this lottery one of these days. And at that moment, Celine, who was not home at the time, had called with some very good news from the doctor's office. And Rene started to tear, started to cry. And Rene Charles says, "Papa, we won, we won." So, my second, little did he know how much he had won. But my second story is, one day, Jackie and I, my wife, went up to the MGM for lunch, and the waiter happened to be a French-Canadian waiter, and throughout the course of the lunch discovered that I was the president of Caesar's Palace. So inevitably, it has been our experience that the next question would be, "Can you get us tickets to see the Celine show?" Or, "Do you know Celine?" Or, "What is Celine really like?" But none of those questions came. He said to us, "Do you know Rene?" I said, "Sure, we know Rene." I said, "But quite frankly, we're a little surprised. Usually people want to know if we know Celine." And he said, "Oh no, don't get me wrong. Everyone in Montreal loves Celine, but Rene, he is a god." And he is a god, and I am very proud to have been able to call him my friend. Thank you.
The CEO of Caesars Interactive and also the chairman of Cirque du Soleil, Mitch Garber's relationship with Rene started in the poker world, and their path from Montreal to Las Vegas have crossed on many occasions. Without further delay, let me introduce you to Mr. Mitch Garber.
Thank you, and merci beaucoup. I have the honored distinction of being a Montrealer, a Quebecer, a Canadian, and a member of the Las Vegas gaming and entertainment community. I began my career as a gaming lawyer in 1992, and I met Rene in 1995. We went to the Mike Tyson-Pete McNeely fight here in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand together. But it was years later, when I came to Caesars and took over Rene's beloved World Series of Poker, that he paid me the biggest compliment of my career. Mitch, you know, you, me, Celine, and Guy Laliberté here in Vegas, it's not a coincidence. So please just remember to always be nice to everyone, because that's who we are. I heard two things. One was that Rene considered me, even if in some infinitesimally small way, to be part of the same club that he and Celine were in, Quebecers influencing Las Vegas. That, of course, was the compliment. And the second thing was a big lesson, that you can be successful and you can be nice at the very same time. Such a simple lesson. A simple lesson, but it's the reason why we are all here today. And it's the thing that his fans and his children need to remember and honor forever. That at the end of the day, this was a business and artistic genius, a devoted and worshiping husband, a doting and proud, committed father, and simply the nicest, kindest, and most generous man in the world. Kind and generous with time, with money, with words, with a smile, a handshake, a hug, and a God-given gift to make you feel like you were truly one of his best friends. And he made hundreds of us feel that way. Waiters, barbers, maitre d's, golf caddies, more waiters, waitresses, more maitre d's, poker dealers, more waiters. Rene made you feel special. Rudyard Kipling wrote in the poem If you can walk with kings and not lose the common touch, if all men count with you, but none too much. That's Rene and Celine, to walk with kings and not lose the common touch. Celine stood for nearly 7 hours at the public viewing of Rene in Montreal, greeting fans and friends. Who does this? Incredibly nice and humble people who have not lost the common touch. And what about the teamwork of Rene and Celine? Rene admired Colonel Tom Parker and Elvis, but this team, I believe, had much more. I think the greatest team in the history of show business, and that teamwork extended to parenting, to friendship, and to philanthropy. Rene was, of course, a raconteur, in an era where raconteurs are sadly becoming very rare. 2 years ago, he asked me where I was spending my Christmas holiday, and I told him I'm going to South Africa. And without missing a beat, he said, "You know, Celine has the biggest selling album in the history of South Africa." Even bigger than Thriller, Mitch. So proud he was. I will miss his phone calls, by far my favorite phone calls. I remember one time Rene called, "Mitch, Rene Angelil." I burst into laughter, and Rene on the other end said, "Why are you laughing? What's so funny?" I said, "Rene, you really don't have to say Angelil after Rene. First of all, I have call display, and second of all, you have voice display." The phone calls turned to texts. The texts turned to my text to Rene's friend Pierre Lacroix to relay to him old pictures, video clips of me talking on French TV about Rene. And Rene answered through Pierre until very recently. And now, here we are. The raconteur is no longer with us. His stories and our stories of him, however, are with us forever. I mentioned Rene's generosity. Well, Rene taught me another lesson. Rene Angelil was the Rocky Marciano of paying for your meal. I would show up 15 minutes early to give the maitre d' my credit card. I'm sorry, Mr. Garber, Mr. Angelil already called. I would call the day before. I'm sorry, Mr. Angelil has called to make sure no one else can pay for this meal. I have slipped waiters extra cash to give them a tip, and they've handed the money back to me. I'm sorry, sir, we cannot accept your money. A Las Vegas waiter refusing a tip, only Rene Angelil could orchestrate that. So about 3 years ago, I was sure I finally had Rene beat. We had set up a golf game at his course near his home in Lake Las Vegas. We were teeing off at 10 a.m. I hadn't planned to play golf, so I showed up about 40 minutes early to make sure that I would be able to buy myself some balls, some tees, a golf hat. I get to the pro shop, there's nobody there. I gather the things I need. I come to the cashier. I lay my credit card on the table. I don't tell the cashier who I'm playing with, so there's no chance that Rene can pay. And as God is my witness and I stand here today, a little voice comes out of nowhere. And I hear, no, you can't pay for anything. I've got this covered. I turn to the rack of golf clothing, and the voice was that of a 12-year-old Rene Charles Angelil. And I remember that day saying to myself, my God, there's two of them. So to Celine and to Rene's children and his brother, his beloved family, extended family, his friends, my heart does ache for you, but at the same time, this is a well-deserved celebration of a life that you were nice enough to share with us. It is who you are. Et finalement, un mot à Céline. J'espère que mes yeux sont aussi rayonnants, ouverts, lorsque je parle de ma femme, que ceux de René lorsqu'il parlait de toi. I hope that my eyes are as wide open with love when I talk about my wife as René's were when he talked about you. René, rest in peace, mon champion.
Thank you, Mitch Garber. After a new day opened here in 2003, Rene and Celine met many extraordinary people in Las Vegas. One very special lady helped Rene and Celine to become real Las Vegans by introducing them to the most beloved charity here in Las Vegas, Opportunity Village. Linda Smith is the Chief Development Officer for Opportunity Village. Please welcome Mrs. Linda Smith.
Thank you. My heart is beating out of my chest. The flame that was lit at Hello by Rene at the very first meeting that I had will burn in perpetuity for people with disabilities throughout the world. It will not only warm every person, every family who needs help, it will continue to be the spark that can start fires across the nation and around the world and will illuminate the earth. My name is Linda Smith, and I am with Opportunity Village, but I am the mother of a son, Christopher, who has Down syndrome. Many years ago, I had an impossible dream that I could meet Rene and Celine and ask them to help Opportunity Village, and by doing so, change the way people view disability through their star power. Instead, I met people I would come to call friends, real people first, and yes, superstars, but more so, they were kind, gentle, generous, and caring. With Rene and Celine solidly in our corner, we were able to start to build a world-class campus with arts in all of its forms right here in Las Vegas, an employment training center, and soon to be a residential community, a place that will feature groundbreaking best practices in disability care and bring attention to people from all over the world to come and visit this model. There comes a time in life when we all must say goodbye, but I am here to tell you about a profound hello, one that I exchanged with Rene and Celine many years ago. But I have to back up just a minute. I was putting my disabled son, Chris, to bed last week when I got the call to speak at this beautiful, beautiful ceremony in honor of Rene. There are two very compelling things about this momentous call. One is, I am just a mom, not a celebrity, not an industry leader, simply a mom on a mission to make my son's entry into the world make sense. Chris was born with Down syndrome in Canada, as Celine knows. And I had this baby that everyone thought was a disaster. And my journey over the years has been to find all the things that are amazing about him and to connect the cause of disability with people who can change the world for them. I met this beautiful couple, Celine and Rene, my AEG Live friends and my Caesars friends, because of his birth. And I have to tell you a secret, Celine. I had Rene at hello. I saw his warm, brown, luminescent eyes melt at the notion that he wasn't sitting with yet another charity leader extolling the benefits, that he was instead sitting with a mom who, like many others, needed his help to make a child's life meaningful. My request of Celine and Rene wasn't easy. Would you help us build a beautiful campus where Chris and his 2,000 disabled friends would come to learn and work and play? And would you put Opportunity Village on the map with your bigger-than-life name and talent? And would you fill the Coliseum and sell all the tickets and make everyone pay a ton of money? And oh yes, could you pay all the expenses so that we get to keep all the money? And could I impose just a little bit more and bring a ton of potential donors backstage to meet Celine? Because I think they will give us a lot more money for the experience. Rene said yes, Celine said yes, and our donors had that rare privilege of meeting Celine after the show. It was magical. Rene and Celine raised $1 million that day. $1 million for a local charity. And every penny was used to build a campus that's visited now by people from all over the world, one that is filled with best practices, light, and love. Something more happened that day. Rene and Celine became friends, and their hearts were captured by people with disabilities. And true to their hearts, Rene and Celine did not walk away from Opportunity Village after the curtains closed. Instead, they continue to hold us close. They came to our event, The Magical Forest, where they sampled the hot dogs, because we know Rene loves food. He really loved our hot dogs. And they proclaimed them the best ever. And then you powered down the funnel cakes. That tiny little lady over there. Whoa. To see Celine eat funnel cakes was something quite remarkable. But they did so because they knew they were made with love by our wonderful citizens at Opportunity Village. They brought Rene Charles each year, and he rode the Forest Express train. And recently, Celine came back with Eddie and Nelson and brought a ton of our cotton candy to go. We had a great day that day, Celine. When they would visit, from the look in Rene and Celine's eyes, I could see that their children were the ultimate reward for a life well lived. And I knew how they felt and understood how I felt about Chris and why I had become an activist mom. My son is a young man with an intellectual capacity of a toddler, and his needs are great, and they always will be. But he is loved and valued, and his life has meaning, and he brought me to this stage today. His life's work is yet to be done, and when I reflect on this beautiful couple, and in some ways I see families like mine, incalculably brave like Celine, who stands in front of thousands of people each week and uses her talents to capture hearts. In Rene, I see us through his kindness and critical acumen at managing so much and so many. Over the years I have known Rene and Celine, I've seen them seamlessly become part of our community. They have selflessly given themselves to important international charities. UNICEF, Cystic Fibrosis, Autism Speaks, more than 20 international charities. But what is amazing is that Celine and Rene turned their attention to a small local charity, Opportunity Village. Celine, the incredible concert you gave on our behalf and that Rene miraculously said yes to was the first $1 million that we received in our then 50-year history. You gave us the credibility and a reputation that we now have that has enabled us to climb the mountain and raise every penny we needed to build this campus and more. You shined a light on us and gave us hope. If truth be told, Celine and Rene gave us the courage to go on and succeed. Celine, your friendship has strengthened me, and Rene's commitment to you has inspired me. With you in our corner, it steeled my resolve to fight for Chris and his friends, and ultimately for every person with a disability. Because, folks, to commune amongst the disability community, as Celine and Rene will tell you, is to learn a mysterious wisdom, to learn to listen, to accept that they are teachers who speak to our hearts and who expose our most human feelings. I have become a pupil in my son's school. To be fully human is to be part of the whole human family, not separated from it like people with disabilities were for most of their time on earth. Celine and Rene know this. They have supported and celebrated so many people who struggle to live their lives the best that they can. Celine, the the avalanche of support you have experienced since Rene's illness and passing is so because of the lives you and Rene have lived. Life will continue, it always does, but not without Rene looking down on you and your beautiful family. He will always be there to inspire you and keep your family safe. It is said that light enters at the bandaged place. Celine, everyone at Opportunity Village wraps you in their arms in a most imperceptible hug. The legacy you and Rene have built will continue to grow at Opportunity Village, and we will continue to celebrate you. The perpetual flame that you and Rene have lit at Opportunity Village will burn on. And as a mom, I wish to thank you and Rene. As a fighter for people with disabilities, I thank you for joining the fight and for your continued support and inspiration. Rene has given us all the strength to go to amazing new heights, and Rene will live in our hearts forever. Thank you so very, very much.
Gary Loveman is the chairman of Caesars Entertainment, the head of the world's largest gaming company, and the man responsible for preserving a strong relationship between Celine and Rene and Caesars. Please join me to welcome Mr. Gary Loveman.
Thank you, Patrick, Angelil family, and Dion family. It's a great honor that you've chosen to have this event here this evening with all of us and give a few of us a chance to talk about our feelings about Rene and the effect he's had on our lives. For those of you that have been around this world for a long time like me, maybe if you've been lucky, you've had the chance to meet just one person like Rene Angelil. Someone, when you meet him, for whatever reason, no matter how substantial or insubstantial, you have the feeling that everything about your environment is better as a result of having been with him. And it happens very quickly. You may come with any agenda, personal, business, or otherwise, And immediately there's a sense of calm, a sense of confidence, and a sense of benevolence that captures the experience, and you begin to feel it, and all of a sudden, imperceptibly, you recognize that your whole spirit has been lifted by this experience, which you may not have anticipated at all if, as I was in 2005, this was the first such experience. But you come to seek it out, almost like a tonic, that every one of these engagements with Rene or with Celine, or in the very fortunate events you get them both, it lifts your spirit and fills your soul in a remarkable way. And in so doing, as you've heard from several of my colleagues, Rene had this remarkable capacity, even though as you reflected on it, you knew you were only one of dozens or hundreds of people in his orbit. In that time, you felt like you were a very select member of that orbit. And it filled you with the greatest of sensations. In my tenure at Caesars, the most challenging moment in our collective experience came when Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast, where we were the largest employer, and a number of our people's lives were devastated in the events of those few days and the days that followed. And as we thought about how we might rally and support those of us with whom we worked, my thoughts immediately turned to Rene to see if it might be possible to organize an event here in this theater with Celine, Elton John, and Jerry Seinfeld. In my experience, these are rather difficult things to organize and to enjoin everyone's enthusiastic cooperation. But in this instance, I knew, even before I went to Rene, that this would be something that he and Celine would support and do so enthusiastically. And so in the discussion, none of the typical adjudications and logistics were manifest. Instead, it was immediate that his heart was with our hearts, and his determination was to make this not only something that could help those in our family who needed it most, but something that we all could use to regain our spirits and to celebrate. So we had on this stage in one remarkable evening, I am told for the first time, Elton John and Celine Dion and Jerry Seinfeld, and it was a night that none of us will ever, ever forget, Celine. In fact, seeing you sing and dance a bit with Elton John was really, really remarkable. I was pleased that you were the one doing the dancing. There was a second occasion where I was trying to raise money for a disease called sickle cell anemia that affects a great number of people in need around the world, where the science had advanced very substantially, but the financial support had not. And again, my thoughts turned to Rene and Celine, advocates, as you've heard, for children in need. And once again, they came through immediately and in the most profound way. And as was the case at Opportunity Village, this disease that needed friends very badly found two new ones. And we too were able to raise an unprecedented sum of money in just a short period of time to support it. So Rene has presented to each of us a man who, at first blush, is a series of contradictions. He's on the one hand very soft-spoken, but he's profoundly impactful. You hang on every word, every phrase. He's measured, but at the same time spontaneous and very funny, with a sincere and engaging tone and atmosphere about everything that comes to him. He's calm and patient, yet he demands the best of each of us without ever saying to me or my colleagues at Caesars what exactly he expected us to do to meet his high standard. We knew it in the way he conducted himself. But certainly most importantly, despite being a cosmopolitan man, a Renaissance man of sorts, a sophisticated connoisseur of many great things in life, he was most fundamentally a family person, dedicated to his wife, his brothers, his children, all of those in the Angelil and Dion families, and you felt that at every turn, at every engagement in the most sincere of fashions. And as you know, this is a contagious effect. For those of us that got to share in this, it spilled over onto all of us, and I think it made each of us better in our own ways. So if you're willing with me this evening to accept an assignment as a result of our celebration, as you've heard about this remarkable man, perhaps each of us can choose one of the attributes that we found so endearing. He had so many to offer us, and we take it upon ourselves to work just a little harder to manifest them in the way that he did with each of us. And maybe the world will, over time, come to have the same effect on each of us that our experiences with Rene had on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loveman. Calmly and loyally overseeing business affairs for Celine and Rene, Paul Farberman was there from the very beginning, back at the time when they signed the first contract with CBS Records Canada. Let me introduce you to Mr. Paul Farberman.
Thank you, Patrick. I am indeed very deeply honored to be here and part of the celebration of life for my friend Rene. As Patrick mentioned, we go back a long, long time. It's over 30 years, 1986, when I first had the chance to meet Rene. And that happened actually in Paris, France. I was Vice President of Business Affairs for CBS Records in Canada, which would become Sony. And Rene and I had spoken on the phone about signing a contract to have her record for Sony. But we didn't have a chance to meet each other because he had to go off to Paris with Celine, who was recording a French album there. Well, as luck had it, I just happened to be taking a vacation around that time in Paris. And that's where we met for the first time. We've all heard and will continue to know Rene's love of food. So, of course, we met at a restaurant. I remember it like yesterday. It was called L'Étoile on Avenue de Wagram, just off the Champs-Élysées, and we both had steak au poivre, and that was the beginning of our mutual love affair for food, which we enjoyed many, many, many times. Well, we got back to Canada, the contract was signed, and her historic career with Sony had just begun. I shortly thereafter, though, moved to Los Angeles, but that didn't interfere with my friendship with Rene. In fact, it made it stronger. The timing was good because her first English language album, Unison, was recorded at David Foster's studio in Malibu. Again, the beginning of a long, long history that Celine had with David. Not just being in Los Angeles for the recording was opportune time, but they came back to record for an award show, a TV show, so often. And in these early years, they didn't know anybody down here, so Paul, come for dinner, come for lunch, come hang out. And I was very blessed and fortunate that for many years before I actually went to work for Rene, he really was my friend before he actually became my boss. And I'm very fortunate and honored to have had that opportunity to develop such an incredible friendship with this wonderful man that we all know. He talked often about working together. Paul, one day we'll do that. And I was working at the time at 20th Century Fox, and it was January 1997. And he said, Paul, the time is now. And I shook his hand, immediately said yes, went to tell my employers at Fox that I was leaving, and onward I went. And this was an incredible time in Celine's life and Rene's life because Fox was in the middle of making that little movie, The Titanic. And while I was in the office still working out my last few weeks there, I got a call from Mike Gorfain, who was the agent for James Horner, the composer of the score for Titanic. And he said, Paul, you know, James has written a song, that he's done the score, but it just cries out for a song. He got together with his lyricist, Will Jennings, and we'd love to play it for Celine because no one has heard it, not James Cameron, the director. We'd love to play it for Celine. I called Rene, he said, love to hear it. We're in Vegas. And this is before she was performing here, but as we all know, Rene used to love to come here. God, in the early years to hone his gambling skills, Celine used to come with her parents. They'd love to sit at the pool, get away from those cold Montreal winters, enjoy some good shopping, and the Chinese food at Cafe Roma, right here, the old restaurant in Caesar's Palace that all us old people will remember. Well, we went to here, Mike Gorfain, James Horner, and I flew to Vegas, met Rene and Celine in their room, and listened as James Horner played My Heart Will Go On the piano. Didn't sound so good, and Celine was kind of rolling her eyes, and Rene said, well, you know, I think we should have Celine demo the song. And they went, look, we're not here to ask Celine Dion to do a demo. Rene said, well, if James Cameron hasn't heard the song, if he's going to hear it, he should hear it with Celine's voice and not someone else. Of course, they did do that recording, and the next step was to see the movie. Because still, without really seeing the movie, how did they know how it would work? Well, we all got together in New York that summer. James Cameron was there, the producers of the movie, a lot of the key executives from Sony, Dave Patel, of course, and all our team were there, John Doelp. And we watched the movie, and at the end, you could see Celine and Rene wiping the tears from their eyes because they were so caught up in this beautiful, tragic love story that was the centerpiece of the movie. The next day, we all had a meeting with the Sony executives and discussing, should she really do the song for the movie? I mean, the movie was long at that time, and this was, 6 months before the Christmas release of the movie. It had been getting a lot of negative press, a lot of fighting on the set, over budget, and things. It didn't look like this was going to be a big success story. And there was questioning it. And I'll never forget how Rene literally stood up from the table and he said, I'm a gambler, and I'm going to bet on this one. And of course, the rest is history. I'd like to mention another great story, how Celine was performing in Phoenix for the annual event that David Foster puts together with Muhammad Ali for the Muhammad Ali Foundation. And Rene was sitting right at the table with Muhammad Ali, and he motions me over and whispers in my ear, Paul, Celine's backstage. She's about to go on. I'm supposed to be there. Please, go tell her right now. Just say, I'm with the champ. She'll understand. And of course, she understood. We all know and have heard all the wonderful qualities about Rene tonight, and he never boasted and bragged about, oh, I'm Celine Dion's husband, I'm her manager. He went about his life doing what he did in his own quiet way. Well, I remember one night driving with him and Franco Dragon, the creator of A New Day, after the show, go out to an Italian restaurant here in Las Vegas, and Rene was driving. And if you've driven with Rene, you know that experience. He was driving, I was in the back seat, Franco in the front, and every time he would talk to me, he would turn around. And every time he turned around, the car turned around. He was wavering all over. Sure enough, sirens rang, and we got pulled over, and rose out his window. They asked Rene if he's been drinking. No, Rene hadn't been drinking. They asked him to get out of the car, and that's when he said something I really don't recall him ever saying. Officer, my name's Rene Angelil. I'm the husband of Celine Dion. We're just going to get a bite to eat after the show. The officer laughed and said, get on your way and drive carefully. We had a wonderful life. We worked hard. We ate very, very hard. We laughed, we cried, and shared a lifetime of great times together. You will be sorely missed and always in my thoughts. I love you, Rene.
just want to specify about Paul's story, about Rene's driving. We all attest, it was true. Rob Prince has been Celine's first and only agent for shows in North America from the beginning of her touring career. Now, an agent and partner at ICM and a renowned agent with a strong reputation, Rob remains a trusted confidant, for 27 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rob Prince.
Good evening. First, I would like to offer my condolences again to Celine, R.C., Nelson, Eddie, Patrick, Anne-Marie, Jean-Pierre, Andre, and both the entire Angelil and Dion families. I'm very sorry for your losses. I also want to thank you for sharing Rene with us. While he unequivocally belonged to you, when we had him, he was the greatest friend anyone could have. So for me, this is at once both one of the saddest times in my life to have lost such a friend and one of the greatest honors bestowed to me in my life to be able to speak here with you today. To say that Rene Angelil had a profound impact on me and my family would be a tremendous understatement. In 1990, Donald Tarleton sent me a cassette to listen to by a young French girl he told me was getting a lot of attention in Quebec and that there were plans for an English record. I did not speak French, but I told him I did hear a really special quality in her voice, and that I would welcome the chance to meet the manager. Before long, Rene arrived at my office, and I got the full pitch. As you can imagine, I couldn't resist Rene or that voice, and I was hired on the spot as Celine's agent. If Rene liked you, you were in, all the way. Not that I had any idea what that meant at the time or where that meeting would ultimately take us. Much of the rest of the story is well documented. Millions of albums sold, countless awards, and attendance records broken in places from Montreal to Paris to Durban, South Africa, to Dublin, to the massive Tokyo Dome. Everyone on the team all worked very hard and fought for Celine and Rene. And when we had success, there was no one better to celebrate with than Rene, because he was so appreciative to everyone on the team. He was incredibly inclusive. We also got a courtside seat to witness one of the most beautiful love stories imaginable. But I have to say, he was a real guy's guy. I was fortunate enough to spend countless hours working with Rene, but also more rounds of golf, poker tournaments, and meals that I can remember. The meals, of course, as you've heard, legendary. Every single open space on the table filled with plates with every single item on the menu ordered, just so you can taste everything, because as Rene would say, you gotta try this, it's the best. And he loved both fine dining, like Nobu and Guy Savoy, but he really preferred the better restaurants of the world, like Schwartz's and In-N-Out. For sure, he liked those better. And what a sports nut, just like me and all of his friends. I can't think of a sport that he did not adore. He loved the action. He loved the competition. He would have loved Manning Brady's 17 last week because I know he intently watched all 16 prior versions. Plus, his favorite guy won is going to the Super Bowl. We also shared the same cancer, the same surgery, the same treatments. Having a friend to talk to who had been through what I was about to go through 8 years ago helped prepare and inspire me for the battle. Celine and Rene's support through that time meant everything to me and my wife, Nikki. Rene Angelil was the most incredible combination of intelligence, kindness, wit, generosity, loyalty, and street smarts you could ever encounter. He treated every single person he came in contact with in the entire time I knew him, 27 years, with respect and appreciation that set most people back on their heels. No doubt, everyone here who knew Rene has their own version of this story, as you've heard. Whether it was a driver, a waitress, a poker dealer, or a label president, he was universally kind and grateful to anyone he worked with or who would serve upon him. Not to mention the over-tipping. God, he loved over-tipping. It was so rare to see him become aggravated or impatient. So for me, there are two legacies that will stand out when I think of Rene. The great vision and huge success he was able to architect. Just look where we are sitting here today. This building would not exist if not for him. When this deal got done, Las Vegas was a very different town. It was akin to an elephant's graveyard for artists in the early 2000s. This deal with this artist transformed this entire city. How many people can you say that about? Now, there are so many major artists who perform here and have residencies here. It is hard to remember what the town was like before A New Day opened in 2003. If Yankee Stadium is the house that Ruth built, this Coliseum is the house that Rene built. His spirit will be felt here always. The other legacy, and the one I think I will value the most, is what a teacher by example he was. He taught us that you didn't have to sacrifice your kindness and respect for others while being successful in this very competitive, rough and tumble business that we are in. How it's not hard to be generous to people, not only with your money, but with your spirit. When business situations or conflicts between people offered opportunities to be divisive or greedy, he remained steadfast and calm in being inclusive and collaborative. Extremely unique in show business. He taught us how to work together, how to treat each other, and to not sweat the small stuff. Whenever someone doubted him on this, he would raise his hand and say, "It's going to be okay." No matter how high the stakes, personal integrity and doing what was right never came in second. Never, not once. He made us all better. He made me better. And I will miss him. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Already successful as a producer, a writer, and musician in his own right, our next speaker was instrumental in the very beginning of Celine's international English career, the career that Rene had always envisioned for her. I'm very happy now to introduce you to the one, the only, David Foster.
I might add, Patrick, that all the records that we made together was with my partner, Umberto Gatica, who's with us tonight, too. Thank you. Soft. Soft heart. Soft voice. Soft skin. A soft yes when there was a request. And a softer no for a request that didn't fit the mandate. I'm sure there's probably a kinder, gentler person on the planet other than Rene, but I have never met him. Not yet. He didn't demand your attention. He commanded it. When I first met Rene in 1989, I'll be honest, I kind of assumed that he was in some kind of Quebec mafia. You know the voice? No, I'm telling you, it's going to be great. And then the pressure of him telling me that he believed in this younger singer so much that he mortgaged his house. I mean, can you imagine how that affected my decision to get involved? How could I say no to the Quebec Mafia? But the second I laid eyes on the both of them, I knew that they were building the next Canadian treasure. For the past 20 years, I always tell new managers that I meet, go and study Rene and try to do everything and copy everything that he has done. It was and is textbook. How did he know to be just right in every situation? How did he know how to navigate the treacherous waters, as Rob said, of the music business? Where did he learn to treat everyone with kindness and equality? How did he learn how to create and maintain a global career? How did he learn not just sympathy, but empathy? And then, as many have mentioned, there was the love story. And I saw it up close and personal from the beginning. And it was one of the greatest ever. I mean, these two loved each other in a way that I could never imagine. Mind you, I've been married 4 times, so I really can't imagine that. I'm sorry. And forgive me to the other children, Patrick, Marie, and Jean-Jacques. Jean-Pierre, sorry. But I'm sort of directing this at Rene, but I mean it for all of you. Rene Charles and the other siblings. I lost my father when I was just a couple of years older than you, Rene. So I can speak with some experience on the subject. I still remember watching my dad shave, watching him do the dishes, watching him play and teach me the piano. I still remember his smell and 1,000 other memories that I've thought of every day for 50 years. And he is still teaching me, and I still want to please him and never disappoint him. And I promise you that your pain will turn to memories, and those memories will turn into beautiful memories, and those beautiful memories will turn into lessons. And I promise you that your father will be with you for the rest of your life. He gave you a great He gave you all a great moral compass which points to true north, and you will never wander far from that. He has already made certain of that. And in turn, you will pass on that invaluable information to your younger brothers that don't know yet, as you noted, Rene, in your beautiful, heartfelt speech in Montreal. And finally, Celine, I can't speak to your losses from experience, but I will say this, that you have given so much love to Rene, to your family, and to the world, and that everywhere you go, your light and goodness shines. And it always has. Whether it's 20,000 people or an audience of just one, you make everyone feel special. But Rene, he was at the top of the list. There is much more love and light to come into your life in ways that you can't even imagine right now. And I really am sorry for your loss, but please take great comfort in knowing that the man you chose to be your life partner was the best of the best. He was a king amongst kings. He was a Renaissance man, a man of true character. He was a gentleman and a gentleman. Of course, you knew all this, and that's why you married him. That's why you devoted your lives to each other. But I'm kind of glad the world knows too. We all need a little Rene and Celine in our lives, for sure. Now, finally, this is Rene's evil trick on me, I'm sure. I'm going to perform a song. This is a song that I wrote and we performed at Celine and Rene's wedding. It's called The Color of My Love. And I think Rene, he loved this song so much, but I think he loved it so much because if he was a lyricist, I think this is exactly what he would have wanted to say to Celine on their wedding day. Out of all the people that could be singing today, it's me that has to sing this song. It's just, I gotta say, I can write them and produce them, but I can't sing for shit, okay? So, but just pay attention to the lyrics because, well, and Celine sang the song, so nobody could beat that anyway, so it's probably better that I just suffer through it. After the song, I want to ask you one favor, okay? When I end the song, on the count of 3, I want you to yell, stomp, cheer, clap, or anything else you feel like doing. Not for the song or for my lame performance, but to let Rene know that wherever he is right now, he will hear us and our love for him. My apologies. This is Rene singing to Celine, okay? I'll paint my mood in shades of blue, paint my soul to be with you. I'll sketch your lips in shaded tones, draw your mouth to my own. Draw your arms around my waist, then all doubt I shall erase. I'll paint the rain that softly lands on your windblown hair. I'll trace a hand to wipe your tears. I'll look to calm your fears. A silhouette of darkened light while we hold each other oh so tight. I'll paint a sun to warm your heart, swearing that we'll never part. That's the color of my love. I'll draw the years all passing by, so much to learn, so much to try. And with this ring
our lives will start, swearing that we'll never part. I offer what you cannot buy, devoted love until we die.
Now,
Thank you, David. Our next speaker was an important part of Rene's vision. First, with Sony Canada at Celine Dion, and then working at Rene's side for over 20 years. Please join me to welcome Mr. Dave Platel.
Thank you, Pat. It's a great job you're doing this evening. You had beautiful words at Rene's service in Montreal. I'd be very proud of you. Same goes for you, RC. Beautiful words for your dad. I'm sure he loved the line about the smoked meat. David, that was amazing. All the speakers this evening have been reflecting all the beautiful things that we know about Rene, and some of the things I'm going to say are going to sound redundant because we all have consistent feelings about him, but it's because they're all true. Celine, Patrick, Jean-Pierre, Anne-Marie, Rene Charles, Andre, Nelson and Eddie, probably running around the household somewhere right now. Family, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I, like all the other speakers, am honored and humbled to share these words with you tonight about our dear beloved friend, a loyal partner to all of you, and a big brother to all of us. Dear Rene, do you remember the first time we met at CBS Records in Toronto? It was somewhere in the late 80s. I know what you're saying. That was May 10th, 1987, 11 a.m. We're all doing Rene impressions tonight because we just want to love hearing him over and over again. You were a human calendar and a human calculator, and might I add, a creative genius. Anyway, at the time, I was the head of marketing at CBS Canada, and we were meeting about your artist, Celine, appearing at our national convention. Back in those days, I used to meet a lot of artist managers. They'd storm into our offices, yelling, swearing, making unreasonable requests, banging their fist on the desk. But you were so different from all of them. You were polite, soft-spoken, delicate, warm, considerate, and so kind. And that's how you were with all of us here every single day of your life. Well, Rene, you had me at, hello, Dave, nice to meet you. There are so many precious memories that have been running through my mind about you, but there's one simple sentiment that keeps replaying over and over. And it's a philosophy you had in life, and one that you expressed to me time and time again. I want them to feel good. That was your motto. I want them to feel good. And who was them? Them was everybody. All of us. Even when the negotiations got into a bit of a tug-of-war, and the other side was pulling a little harder on the rope, you wouldn't hesitate to give up a little, to get the deal done, to make them feel good, because you were smart enough to know that if you make people feel good, they're going to go through the wall for you. And the walls came tumbling down in support of Celine in every corner of the world, and the walls of this spectacular Colosseum at Caesar's Palace became a reality because people believed in you and because you made them feel good. And did I mention you were a creative genius? Rene, I hope you don't mind if I share a little story about a little white lie you once told to make someone feel good. It was the late 90s. We stopped off in Hawaii for a few days after being in Japan for some promo for Celine. You and I decided to play some golf, and we were going to the Wailea Country Club a few days before a big PGA event, the Sony Open. It was the last day they were allowing the public to play, and they had this special program where they were auditioning caddies from around Hawaii to work the tournament. So the deal was they were giving us a caddy to try out. And if you remember, we met him on the first tee, and we were introduced. His name was Bobby. He was a native Hawaiian, and he wasn't wearing any shoes. He was barefoot. You were so excited. We're in the cart, driving down the first fairway. Hey, Dave, did you check the caddy? Tabernaki's got no shoes. He's going to feel the ground under his feet. We're going to get the perfect distances. Everything's going to be all right. Sorry, I'm hearing it as I... Well, everything wasn't exactly all right. Our shots went either way short of the green or way over the green. The putts that was supposed to go to the left went to the right, where Bobby pointed, and the putts that was supposed to go to the right went to the left. About 6 or 7 holes in. Hey, Dave, I think the caddy is drunk. What do you think? I don't know if the caddy was drunk, but maybe. Anyway, we finished the round. I think we both shot about 150 that day. As we walked off the 18th green, there was a reporter and a photographer from the Honolulu Advertiser, and they wanted to ask us about our golf experience. They asked me about the course. I told them it was fantastic, great layout, beautiful shape. And they asked you, what do you think of the caddy? He was very nice. And did he help you with your golf game? Oh, yeah, he was the best. So, next thing, they're taking a photo of you, me, and Bobby, our all-star caddy. Next day, front page, sports section, Honolulu Advertiser. There we were, Rene, Bobby, and I. Big day for Bobby, great day for us. Fast forward, about 5 years later, Celine's celebrity host for the Dinosaur Nabisco Golf Championship in Palm Springs, and a bunch of us get to play the Pro-Am. After breakfast, we're walking to the tees, and we hear this voice calling out, Rene, Rene, hey, Rene. We turn around, it's Bobby. He's got an LPGA bag over his shoulder, a brand new pair of shoes, and he's thanking you profusely. And one more time, you tell him, you're the best. We walked away, we laughed pretty hard. You probably saw potential in Bobby back in Hawaii, and you wanted him to feel good. And by doing so, you gave him confidence. And look at the result. Rene, you had a real short memory for things that didn't go well, and a very vivid memory for things that did go well. You were generous with your praise, and that gave all of us confidence. You used to love retelling stories of pressure-packed showbiz moments with Celine. She came through, you'd always say, with such pride and joy. And it's true, Celine did always come through, because she knew you had her back. And she knows you still do. Before I finish up, I have to tell you how you made it so much fun for us to come to work every day. And everywhere you went, that's where we wanted to be. Is Rene going to be at the meeting? Will Rene be at dinner? Is Rene going to the studio? We didn't want to miss one moment with you. And what was truly amazing for all of us is that you had so much love for Celine and for your children and for your grandchildren and for the rest of your family and for Celine's family, and yet you still had enough love in your heart to spread around to the rest of us. You were a star shining so bright in all of our lives, the brightest in the night sky. And whether it was the great Muhammad Ali or a barefooted caddy named Bobby, you made everybody feel so good. Well, my friend, no dark shadows, no black clouds will dim your light. Your presence will shine on forever, and you will be with us for the rest of our lives. And for me personally, in terms of making me feel good, you hit it 300 yards right down the middle. I love you, Rene. God bless you always. And let's talk again tomorrow.
Thank you, Dave. Dave Patel. So before I present you with the last speaker of the night, please allow me to thank you again for coming here tonight. And I hope that Rene, our father, brother, husband, was and will remain for you the inspiration and model that he was for us. We love you, Dad. So finally, I would like to welcome back to the stage a living legend of entertainment journalism, a respected writer for the Las Vegas Sun, a man who developed a relationship with Celine and Rene on their first days in Las Vegas back in 2003. Our presenter this evening, from the lifestyles of the rich and famous, Mr. Robin Leech.
Thank you, Patrick, for those kind words. And like everybody else in this hallowed hall this evening, it is a privilege and an honor to be here. It's very difficult after listening to all of these wonderful testimonials about this incredible man to find something that could be said to sum it all up. And I went digging and found what I would describe as a sonnet that I think is pretty powerful. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates of his life from the beginning to the end. January 16, January 14, 2016. He noted that the first came as his date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said that what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that he spent alive on earth. And now just those who knew and loved him know what that little dash is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the house, the cars, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. I don't think that anybody lived that dash with more gusto for life and love, with enthusiasm and personality, than Rene. He was our friend. He was our mentor. He was always there when I needed some good news, and I'll never forget his friendly wave while we played poker at the Opportunity Village tournaments. Somebody else said tonight he was the ultimate gentleman in every interaction. He treated everybody with the same respect that he wanted for himself. Kind, humble, gentle, yet so powerful and strong. And now he is at peace and without pain. You know, there's an expression called random acts of kindness. I just want to quickly tell you of 4 random acts of kindness that I knew from Rene. The story that somebody told me of their wedding day here in Caesar's Palace. He bumped into the couple, or rather the couple bumped into him, crossing the casino floor. They both apologized to each other, and the girl recognized Rene and asked if she could have a wedding day photograph of her new husband, and Rene, to which Rene said, absolutely yes. And then after they'd taken the photo, he said, I'll do you one better, and gave the couple tickets for the front row of Celine's show the next evening. A random act of kindness. The girl from Brazil who emailed me and told me that she had flown all the way to Las Vegas only to find that the show had been canceled that night, and she sat on the steps outside crying. Rene had found her crying on the steps. She recognized him, obviously, and he promised her that she could come back the next night and meet Celine, so that her journey from Brazil had not been in vain. I remember the first time that I asked Rene if we could indulge him and Celine in helping us out with our annual Keep Memory Alive Gala. And they turned over this showroom to us as a fundraiser. And that was another $1.5 million that Celine and Rene raised for a local charity. And then this year, in the midst of this awful illness that he fought so bravely, I'd asked Rene if we could invite Celine to come and perform with Andre Bocelli. And he said yes. And I will never forget that in the midst of that hardship that they were going through in Boston, that Celine got on a plane, flew all the way here at her expense, performed with Andre Bocelli, and flew back round trip to Boston that same night. What an enormous gesture of love, devotion. So Celine, thinking of those things, forgive me for taking some liberty and license, but if Rene could have written something today to you, your family, and those of us who are privileged to call him a friend, after his passing and for today's celebration of his life, I think it would have been a little like this. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints upon the snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift, uplifting rush of quiet birds in circled flight. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not stand and cry. I am not there. I did not die. I am alive. Rene truly was one remarkable man to all of us. It was an honor and a privilege to have known him. What an example he set for every one of us. Merci beaucoup, Rene, and Celine, thank you.
Celine, please. Celine Dion.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for the lovely music. David, you have given your best performance ever. This is home away from home. At the same time, I'm supposed to feel extremely comfortable being home. And right now, I'm not quite sure how strong I feel. I wrote a few things. I'll pass probably a few lines and let my heart decide where it wants to go. I think we've heard it all. You've said it all. But let me start by saying, good evening, dear friends. Well, I want to start by thanking all of you from the bottom of my heart for being here this evening to honor Rene, the love of my life. He would be so happy to know that we are all here together, telling stories and sharing memories and playing some of his favorite music. And especially in this beautiful theater that many years ago was one of his dreams come true. I also want to thank all of you who spoke so eloquently about my dear husband. I feel the love in this room. I feel his strength and his warmth being reflected in all of you. Rene always surrounded me with the best people who believed in us and who always worked so hard on our behalf. Many of you are here with us tonight, and forgive me for not naming names, because over the years there have been so many individuals who have carried our torch, and Rene would be upset if we overlooked anyone. But you know who you are, and more importantly, he knows who you are. Pretty amazingly, Rene never hated anyone or had a wrong opinion about someone. is it ever possible that someone loves everybody? I don't think so. But he never told me. He never told me what he disliked or the person he didn't like. And when I think about it, why didn't he? Knowing him so well, and I'm pretty sure you would agree with me. Why spending time with me to tell me that this person, he didn't like this one, or he didn't like this, or he didn't like that? Time was very precious to him. He loved life so much. He loved life so very much. And life loved him. He never took any second to talk to me against anybody. And I'm pretty sure, again, I'm repeating, I'm insisting, he had opinions on some people. Even sometimes, if I may say, I had opinions on some people. I think you know me so well that you know where I'm going. That he never allowed me to give my opinion if we were not alone. If there would be family or dear friends close at the table or somewhere somehow. When I was about to start and say, but what? He would either kick me under the table or give me or he would give me a sign that I understand very well, that me, his wife, the artist that I am, the performer that I am, behind closed doors, you can tell me anything you want, but not in front of people. An artist, a performer, never judge another one. And doesn't mean I don't have opinions, and we all do. But it would have done what for me to say to some friends or family members that I dislike this performance, or I know what it takes to perform and to be on stage and to give our best. Sometimes our best is the 30% of what we have left in us because we're sick, because it's all that's we have left in us. We give it all. It's not always perfect. But I learned everything from him. But this is something that I didn't write, but it came to me just now. And I'll remember this for the rest of my life. But I would like to mention our friends and partners at Sony Music, AEG, Caesar's Palace, and the CDA Feeling team, as well as so many people in the media, and of course, the talented writers, producers, and musicians who have helped to shape our dreams from the very beginning. And boy, it was said before tonight, but did he love all the people? Every time I met someone and he was not there, I came home and it was like, so what did she say? Well, she just said that she liked the performance. But what exactly did she say? And I'm like, well, she just said that she was happy to be at the show. And no, but I said, Rene, I don't remember. Like when people say to me, oh, you were great, great show, and blah, blah, blah. I'm trying not that I don't want to hear. I don't want the words to affect me. I want to hear But I just want to take a little. If the person comes to me and say, we had a great night tonight, I don't need to hear the rest. All the compliments that I refuse to hear probably help me, without pretension saying so, remain the person, grounded, that Rene wanted me to be so much. I know you said it as well, from someone who brings him the paper, the newspaper in the morning, to the manicure person, to the barber, to the ushers, to the fans, to everyone, from a person who has no shoes, like Dave Platel said, to someone who's at the top of a building, at the top of a company, making decisions and making a difference in our world. No one, to his eyes, was more important than another. It makes him grand for that. Also, one little thing to make me laugh, because I did watch. I'm not a television watcher myself. I don't. You might be surprised, but this is the truth. I do not listen to music, radio, neither television. Maybe I have no time. I don't know. That could be one reason. Or in the car on my way home, I have a few CDs that are suggested to me, or something that I want to hear, and I put my headphones on, and the ride home is time for me. But the last 2 years, I have watched some television with him. Did I like sports? Let me rephrase that. I loved him very much. That's very different. I would say touchdown when it was not time. I would say things that were like not inappropriate. It was not. I wasn't sure what I was watching. I was not watching. I was looking. I was looking for the remote control. I couldn't find the remote control. He had all the control. But we have watched a lot of a show that you do know. The Price is Right. He thought I was so good. I knew the prices of everything. I'm the one who orders the stuff online, so I know what I'm talking about. Price changed. But anyway, all this to tell you that I was watching Family Feud and The Price is Right with him. And he was crying when the person at the end of the show of The Price is Right won the showcase. A brand new car and a trip to Hawaii. The guy or the person or the girl was winning, and he was like, I'm so happy for them. And I was like, wow. I don't know if you call this a blessed man or, my gosh, I think we need to talk a little bit. Rene always made people feel so good, even when we had to say no to them. It's so easy to say to the kids or to anyone, oh, sure, yes, of of course. Yeah. To say yes, it's easy. To say no, it's not. I've heard it before tonight a little bit about the softness. When Rene said no, and don't get me wrong, because I was never part of any of the meetings that he had where you had to say yes or no. He protected me from day one for the rest of my life. I am pretty sure of that. He didn't want me to hear the roughness of when it's about, what a meeting is all about, when you ask for, we need this, we need that, the amount of money, but this needs to happen, and we need it this way. He didn't want me to be there. He always protected me. He wanted me to focus. Focus on what he believed that I could do best. Sing. But every time that I heard him say no, which was not during a meeting, how many people do you know that said no to someone because I couldn't make it, or for whatever reason it was, that when that person left, the person felt good? I never met another one like that. I never heard him say that he disliked or passed judgment on others. He always guided me with these strong values. And all the time he spent with these people reflected the best part of his nature. His beautiful ability to make every person he ever met feel important and part of the family. This was his greatest gift, his dream, to treat everyone, like you said before, with respect, warmth, and so much love. So I know that he wants me to thank everybody so much for making his dreams come true. And making sure I do not forget anything. On behalf of my family, thank you again for being here with us this evening for this beautiful tribute to mon amour. Rene, I love you.